Hello and welcome. Today is October 3rd, 2023. You've joined the Kubeflow community meeting. I would like to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded and it is governed by the Kubeflow Code of Conduct. We have an agenda here, which, first things we usually get to is the release status for 1.8 because we're pretty close on that. But I'm just going to ask before we go to Daniela on the 1.8, are there any questions or walk-on topics or anything that people need to add into the agenda? I see some new people here. Anybody want to say hello? Okay. If you didn't get off mute or something comes up or you just want to add something in, feel free to let us know as we're going through. I'm going to jump in since we have a pretty large agenda and many things going on today to get into first the release 1.8 status. Daniela, are you ready to walk us through how we're doing?
Sure. Cool. Hi, everyone. So yes, this is week 3 of distribution testing. Thanks everyone who has been participating and providing feedback. But anyway, first item in the agenda is RC2. So we're having an RC2 probably today. We're going to include KZerv 0.11.1. From the Kubeflow side, we are waiting on the support for ARM. I remember Kimonos was working on it yesterday, and yeah, the PR should be merged soon, so that could be also included in RC2. I'll just have to confirm with him about the status on that. Then we have to backport another change in Kubeflow, but yeah, just to make sure that it makes it to the next RC. Then Khatib and Training Operator are not releasing any other RCs, so we're good on that. And pipelines they are still on 2.0.1. They don't have, or apparently they don't have any blocking issue, but there is one issue that was raised a couple of days ago in the 1.8 tracking issue. It seems like it's not blocking, but it would be good if the pipelines working group could check that and let us know. Let David know as soon as possible if you're going to fix it and if you're going to have another RC for pipelines. Anyway, I will, whenever I got the new RC, I will let everyone know as we have been doing so far by the Google group, via the tracking issues. So yeah, please keep an eye on that. As I mentioned at the beginning, distribution testing ends this week on Friday. And then after that, we have 2 more weeks for bug fixes, last minute changes, potentially another RC. It will depend on, of course, the working groups and if they merge or fix anything. As well as with any other RC, I'll let you know. And we're already working on the documentation. Thanks, David, for leading that effort. We are starting drafting the blog post, the changes to the website, and and gathering all the release notes from the working groups to have a list of features, changes, etc. And that's pretty much it. Questions or comments? James? James, if you're speaking, I don't think we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So regarding the pipelines, so that is not an issue, but a feature request. This is because of the feature that is originally in V1, but is not implemented in V2. We have a different plan about creating that feature parity. So it's okay to not block on that, as you mentioned. We can discuss that outside of the release cycle.
Perfect. Yeah, that seems perfect. Thanks, James, for confirming this. Any other question or updates, concerns?
I'm going to put James
From the
on the
community.
spot for
Yeah.
a second. James or someone from the pipelines.
Yes.
Kubeflow 2.0, we've talked about having come out now several releases. We've had this, I believe, is the first 2.0.0 GA version that we've incorporated.
Yes.
And I know that we've asked this question over and over, but I'm going to ask it again, because just saying Kubeflow 2.0 probably doesn't really tell users two or three things that 2.0 really is going to give them. Is there a chance that we could once again come up with the 1, 2, or 3 things that are most important in 2.0?
Sure. I can definitely do that. We have the Kubeflow Summit this week. I can come up with a slide deck during our working group update that mentioned the highlight of the KFPV2.
Okay, that would be great, because I know that David is working on putting together kind of the outline of the key features. And I think that we need to give a little bit more detail than just Kubeflow 2.0 if possible.
Sure. Yeah, I can give some highlight. Basically, SDK and front end and also the back end, they all have new functionalities. But I don't want to spend more time in the Kubeflow community meeting here. I will mention that in the Kubeflow Summit if that's okay.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. David, will that help you?
Yes, it does. Well, I was using I share a slide that I prepared for a meeting in Canada, and I'm actually based on the slide deck that Chen and James did a few years back, and the things that I know. So thanks, Josh.
Okay, yeah, if you guys can just sync up on that, that would be great. All right, fantastic update. Daniela, congratulations. It looks like we're getting closer.
Yep.
If you were to put a color on the green, red, yellow, what color would the release status be?
Well, since it's in progress still, it's yellow, but it's moving towards green. Green is when we release. So
okay. And
yeah, we're good.
I know that you've been working to get feedback from multiple distributions. Have you had comments now from more than 3 or 4 or 5 distributions on the testing, or?
Right. So at least 5 distributions have confirmed that they will be participating in the testing. Still no, I haven't heard from those distributions if they have issues or anything. I just know that they are currently testing, and my guess is that they will be providing feedback if they have any. Yeah, but we have at least 5.
Power users provided any comments at all? Anybody who outside the distributions?
Yeah, so there was it's in fact there in the notes. So about pipelines, about what James was talking about, this feature that was in 1, but it's not in 2. But other than that, I don't think there's more comments.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, we appreciate everybody's effort to move the community forward here. Let's last call for 1.8. And what's the release date?
The release date is still on October 25th.
October 25, which is what day of the week?
It's Wednesday, I believe.
Wednesday. Okay.
Yeah, one day after the community call.
Sounds like it's a long way off, but it is this month. We're going to try to make sure that it comes out this month, right?
Yep, correct.
All right, let's help her. Okay,
Right.
great job. Great job. The release team has done a fantastic job. I want to say Danielle has done a really good job of keeping everybody together. But if you go to the release team meetings, you'll see a lot of people, more people than ever. I've been doing the releases for, I don't know, 14 times. I've never seen 5 people show up all the time. And I give all those folks that show up to every meeting a lot of credit, and they should get a free Kubeflow Summit t-shirt from. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's go forward with with Amber. Amber, how are we doing on the Kubeflow Summit?
Actually, we're doing pretty good. We've thanks to you, you've lined up a couple more speakers to fill in a gap that we have, and I'm updating the agenda. So Matthew, we'll get those changes over to you so you can do your magic on the website, please, and thank you. It's a packed agenda. It is going to be just like from the time we start with your welcome talk to the time we end with your wrap up, packed with not only our working group leads, which are all going to get 20 minutes to speak. I just have to add Janu in on that, and then we'll have that finalized. But not only will we be hearing from all of the working groups that are wanting to participate, but we're going to be hearing from like Red Hat and Canonical and Deloitte and Roblox, and Matthew's going to speak on Deploy KF, and the list goes on, and AJ from D-Cube and others, regardless of whether you're able to participate in person or, remotely, it's going to be a great lineup. We've also got a professional streaming service now, which means I don't have to bring my kit. Matthew doesn't have to bring his, that are going to be responsible for recording and helping us break those up very quickly into individual tracks. So it's all coming together. And I'm really looking forward to seeing those of you who will be in Dallas on Friday, or Irving near Dallas on Friday, as well as those will be online. So if you haven't signed up yet, this is a free event. Registration is required. So if you're in near around the Dallas area, please consider popping over in person. But if you can't, please sign up to participate remotely, and we'll get those instructions out on how to, join the calls and stuff. Probably late Wednesday, early Thursday, because we've got to talk to the streaming service. But like I said, it's all coming together, and it should be a fun event.
That's really great. I know this has been a tremendous amount of work, and I think the community is completely in debt to Amber and Mars for pulling this off. Just an incredible recovery, and built it into a good and in fact a very impressive agenda. If you look at the people that are coming in from the companies that they work for. Amber, what's the status on can you share kind of what the agenda looks like, or do you expect that to be I know we have one up, but are we going to repost something?
Yes, we've got Deloitte and one other speaker that we need to post. I had a speaker ask for a different. The schedule's so tight, I didn't have a lot of room to change many things, but we've got. Let me just run through it right quick. Starting at 8:15 in the morning with Josh's welcome and overview of that, and then we have Roche speaking on simplifying machine learning deployments through cloud native buildbacks and Kserve. I'm not going to read all the topics, but we've got Roblox and their journey to supporting 60 million DAUs, starting by supporting 200 of them. So we'll see those folks. We got a lot of users this time. We've got Red Hat speaking about model mesh and model serving. We've got, like I said, the working groups. We've got security, training operator, AutoML, pipelines, notebooks, and Kserve this time, all speaking. We've got about 75 minutes, an hour and 45 minutes for them to speak. Then we kind of roll into some lightning talks after lunch. And then we'll get into Deploy KF. We also have a lightning talk from Josh about the community, and I'm throwing together what is Kubeflow and Dr. Seuss, kind of a lighthearted Dr. Seuss kind of style, because it's 5 minutes and the slides are auto advanced, so it should be fun. We've got another talk by Red Hat about scaling your models to 0 with Knative and Kserve. Let's see. We've got VMware, a platform to enable AI, workload for multi-cloud with hardware accelerations. We've got how to use Kubeflow with MLflow from Canonical. We've got an Open Data Hub speaker monitoring the performance of your deployed models using Open Data Hub. We've got a Tecton talk by IBM that focuses on Kubeflow Pipelines 2.0. We've got scaling your Kubeflow implementation enterprise-wide with tens to hundreds of users. That's DCube. And then Josh, you get to wrap it up with all the calls to actions at the end of the day. So that goes from 8:15 to 5:30 with 2 breaks and an hour and a half for lunch. So we do have a very exciting and packed agenda.
So just to be unfair to Amber, as you guys can see, I've been contacting users and asking them to put in or provide a 5-minute update on their Kubeflow user journey. If there are any users that would like just to spend 5 minutes on, hey, why they're using Kubeflow, or what they could use Kubeflow to do better, or why they use Kubeflow rather than some other tool. 5 minutes, no slides, just come on. If you're interested, contact Amber or myself. We'll get you on the agenda. We'll fit you in somewhere that's convenient for you. But we've had several people start to reply to that. And as you can see, we're trying to keep this moving fairly quickly. So one thing I noticed about one of the initial Kubeflow Summit meetings is that the sessions weren't real long, right? And that kind of helped keep the energy up, especially in the afternoon. So if we do contact you and ask you, about the length of your session, just realize we're trying to fit in a lot of people. And, we know it's a little unfair to say we're going to give you a certain amount of time, then cut you back a little bit. But if you can be helpful on that, I think it'll make us get a lot of content in and keep the energy up as we go through the day. Okay, Amber, we'll see an agenda posted somewhere relatively the next couple days.
Well, hopefully after this call, because I'm updating it on the call and hoping that I don't miss anybody, I'll send it to you and Matthew. And if you say that I haven't missed anyone that you've sent my way, then Matthew can start updating as he has time and bandwidth today. But definitely I'll update the pieces I can, which are the spreadsheet, which I can share on the mailing list in Slack. And then I can update Eventbrite for both the in-person and the virtual registrations, but it'll be up to Matthew to work his PR magic for the website. So
yeah, and I would almost just say some special guests may show up, just like a good concert. With schedule might change a little bit. I just put that. Let's go.
Yeah, I leave an asterisk on all my schedules, subject to change without notice. So hopefully people understand that.
Great. It's going to be a good time. You're going to learn a lot. Some of the, your chance to meet the people who are doing the work here and help
George,
the new
quick
users.
question.
Go ahead.
On this user panel, do we want to give users more time to speak with them, than just 5 minutes? Or
The reason why I did 5 minutes, Andre, is this was last minute trying to fit in people who hadn't prepared anything. And I figured that if people didn't want to do slides and didn't want to write an abstract, but I know, and I've reached out to 5 or 6 people from major companies who I've had long conversations with. And I'm like, look, can't you just give us 5 minutes on one topic? I thought it would be easier for them to prepare, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm glad to give them more time. I'm just trying to make it easy for them.
Plus, here's the thing. We don't have a lot of time. And that's why Josh was saying that if we are to give people more time than those 5 minutes, that means I have to reach out to the speakers we've already committed to times on and saying, hey, we need to shorten your time. So I'm really trying to not have to take away from any times that we've already committed to people. So we only have a very tight schedule. So I would love to have a magic wand and give people all the time in the world, but we just don't have it.
Yeah, I understand. I just want to mention, I don't think they need slides or abstract or anything else. I was thinking that this kind of user discussion would be similar to what we did like 5 years ago, right? Like when basically user telling about their stories, so feature request, or we can ask them questions why you don't want to use Kubeflow, why you're actually using Kubeflow, right? But
Yeah,
I mean,
think that would be great. We just didn't get organized. I mean, with the restart and everything else, Andre, and there weren't people out there gathering the users to do that, right? But a user panel with Q&A, that would be cool, right? I think that's what Matthew wants to do over drinks afterwards, right? Let's put that down as for next time, or if we can do it this time, great. But all right, Kubeflow user diagram. Any other questions on the summit? Okay, Kubeflow user diagram. This is an interesting project, and I think it's very important. And I think Matthew, and Amber, you kind of push this along, right? Where it's like, hey, we need to update this architecture document because we got Spartacus on it. And people have made a lot of effort to do this. I'm not sure. I think we had this as an option. And then there was this as an option. I can't read that very well. I don't know if other people can. But then there's this and this.
We probably need to, I mean, obviously we really need to fix the coloring and stuff. The coloring makes it hard to read, but that's not us doing it. That's a specific person. I think they're trying to get the content right, and then we can talk about the formatting.
Correct. What I was going to do was make it match how we've done it before. I was just waiting on the updated content. So once somebody tells me the content is good, I'll have it match the other diagrams on the site.
This is one of the best diagrams I've seen so far. Maybe other people don't like it, but I kind of it's busy.
So do we have the person on the call today? I think Vikas, his name is.
There's a more later one.
So the question that I had with is mostly with the other add-ons, right? Like, what does it really mean by feature store and and the Elira?
I mean, clearly those shouldn't be there at all. Like, it doesn't make sense for anything that's not part of Kubeflow to be in our architecture diagram. And it also means that we would have to update it regularly, which is crazy.
I don't know about that, Matthew. I think that I kind of like the way this is, and I think it is kind of, but I get your point that perhaps, I mean, are you going to take out all the Kubernetes and all the stuff at the bottom too?
No, that's different. Like, I think it's more like it introduces.
But we don't control that. I mean, if you want to be specific to your kind of delineation, they're not under our control.
But we depend on them, whereas we don't have any relationship in any technical sense to Bento-ML, for example. So it's not an architect. If we talk about an architecture diagram,
yes,
like
we do. Yes, we do.
Well, what I mean is that you don't have to use them.
Bento has done a tremendous amount of contributions. They are part of the community, and just like Kserve, they're needed. I think a lot of people would argue we have to have the serving component.
I'm not saying that we don't have to have a serving component, but what I'm saying is that, like, if the goal of the architecture diagram is to overview the architecture of the things that are Kubeflow, then it's not technically related.
No, but it's clearly provided that it is external add-ons, right? So I agree with you if things are not managed right now. So for example, in the other add-ons, I don't see any updates, or I'm not even sure whether things are being updated, right? But for all the updated ones, why should we not put it, right? Because it's saying that it's an add-on, and they are constantly
It should be
updated.
renamed to like an ecosystem page then. This is more like the ecosystem page than an actual architecture diagram at that point.
That sounds fun. Fine to me. Yeah.
Well, can we have two? Can we have like one that's a simplified version, and then if you want to drill down, you can have this version. Like if we have this version and it's more complicated and more in depth than the other one, to make a lesser version would be easy. So why can't both live together?
Well, we definitely have both. It just means the two have to be updated. But yeah, I mean, I agree that we should have, like, there should be a very simplified one which just says, here are the components of Kubeflow, and that's it almost. And then that could be the architecture one, because that's kind of what it is. And then you could have an ecosystem one, kind of like the CNCF has that huge roadmap ecosystem thing they have. Of everything that's connected to everything in CNCF. But yeah.
I also think that we, like what is the goal, right? The goal is for the user who comes to the project to understand if actually Kubeflow can solve their use cases, right? Like we need to have definitely a separate diagram for the ecosystem part of things, which we're going to include Elira, for example, right? But the main kind of components, like the core, should be in the app section. And even like there's like debatable whether we want to like include serving, right? That I commented here. And from my understanding, like we shouldn't exclude them from core of Kubeflow if we want to like attract the users on this, like explaining them what is Kubeflow actually.
So the most important thing to understand is that we don't want to mislead users either, right? Like Kubeflow does not include BentoML. It might have connections to it, but it doesn't include it. And it's definitely not our project.
Yeah, that is why BentoML should be in the ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
I'm just speaking about like the core ML functionality that Kubeflow provides. Speaking about training, tuning, serving, pipelines, right? Notebooks. This is the core ML features that why users try to use Kubeflow, right? To run machine learning on top of Kubernetes, right?
I definitely think that we should have, at minimum, even if it's not in a visual form, we should at least have a table of the components on the architecture page, which are actually part of Kubeflow, and then a purpose, like name, purpose, and then working group maybe, and then just like 3 columns, like, and then that solves your question there, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that is why like what I suggested in the beginning, right? Like the very simple one, like if you just scroll up, like just explaining the ML features that Kubeflow offers, right? So very simple, like it doesn't like show the stack. No, I'm talking about the first one this one. So it doesn't show the stack, I agree, but it shows like the ML kind of functionality that we kind of support today, right? So yeah, so for the stack, I think we just need to understand what is the purpose of stack diagram, right? Like from the user perspective. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think we need Vikas on the call, like, to discuss these things, like, who actually was a volunteer for this, and we need more time to understand what kind of like bonus we should include.
Yeah, I think here's kind of my take. We need to be fair to Vikas, right? I mean, this has gone through multiple iterations. At some point, we just have to put a pin on it and say, hey, this is good enough for this round. We can continue to iterate, but at some point we need to say it's either this one or something like this one, and let him finish and then come back. It's better than it was, let's put it that way, right?
So the most important thing is that the introduction page and architecture page need to actually have the words that are correct. The visuals are one thing, but the most important thing is actually the words. Like right now, the words are strange or wrong and not actually very detailed. Like as I was saying, for most users, they have the first question when they first come to the project: what is Kubeflow, right? And we need to succinctly answer that on a single page under the introduction. The answer in my mind is it's a collection of tools. It's a project owned by the CNCF that produces a collection of tools for running ML workloads on Kubernetes. And then the next section there would be there's a table. And the table says, here are the components in Kubeflow. And this is talking about the ML components, not the dependencies or anything. Then you can have another table under that for dependencies if you want, but maybe that's more of an architecture page thing. The introduction page should just be, if you deploy Kubeflow's whole platform, you get notebooks, pipelines, kafka, training operator, and blah, blah, blah. And then you get, and then under there, you can have a diagram. So the table is useful because it lets people have it lets us have nice links to those sections as well. Like, so we can link to the docs for each section, we can link to the working group for each section, and we can, you know what I mean? Like the table's important because I originally wanted the table to have the image to have the links, but if we're not using a dynamic generation system for the image, it's not possible. So we need to.
I think that would be good. Look, I was hoping that we could do this. I think that's a great vision. You know, some of this, I see this on the manifest working group page, right? In the manifest page kind of explains what's in Kubeflow. And I'm just wondering, because it's so dynamic, if we try to do it in a web page, is it just too dynamic to keep up with?
There's only a couple of components, right? The most important thing is the introduction needs to be correct. And I'm happy to write that. I just haven't had a lot of time. But the two images that we need to exist are definitely the one that visually represents the actual ML tools in Kubeflow with no reference to anything that a non-developer would, that a non-platform engineer would need. So like not like an end user does not need to know that Istio is even involved in Kubeflow, right? If I'm a person trying to sell my boss on using Kubeflow versus paying for SageMaker or whatever, like he doesn't give a crap about Istio. He only cares what the actual tools are, right? So that's the first thing that the first question that is the answer that people need is, what is Kubeflow? It's a way to deploy ML tools. Here are the ML tools. And then the next step is, if you want to know about the architecture, then it talks about Istio and other things. That's what the second page is for. Right?
I would argue differently on this. I would say one of the biggest attributes of Kubeflow is the fact that it has the Kubernetes primitives and it has the isolation and it has the scalability that a lot of other tools that start off that are easier to use do not try to go after these really hard concepts. And Istio, as complex and problem as it is, does start to solve some of those enterprise problems that people are going to run into. And, you know, I'm not sure that I understand the idea where you're going, and I understand the simplicity. I'm kind of I think that's phase 2 of what we're trying to get done here. I think that, to be fair to Vikas, we need to make a decision on this so he can finish and then we can move on. And if we want to redo phase 2 and do it again, that's fine, but we need to finish this for him so he can have this done. It's not fair to make it, to have this go around and around and around. It was open on June 29th.
That is why we need him on the call. So I think, Josh, before we start getting to the website, we need to find a consensus across the.
I think he's in a different time zone, but yeah.
Okay.
I think he's in Asia.
I mean, I gotta tell you, I don't think this is that bad, right? Compared to what we had, I understand we could do a lot better. We could do, Matthew, I think your vision is great. I'm just saying, can we live with this versus what we have right now?
Yeah, I see your point there, and I'm not against doing that, dropping in the existing with some small formatting changes, I'm not against it.
Other comments?
And
Okay.
also some slight content changes as well. But yeah, that's about it.
Amber, I think you had kind of worked on this a bit. I think other people have, but all right, whatever.
I was just gonna say, I've been chatting with him, so let me figure out a time that works, and based on who's commenting here and has strong opinions, let me see if I can't find a time where we can all just jump on a call with him, because maybe this time doesn't necessarily work, but we can find another time, and for me, I don't mind staying up late or getting up super early to get this knocked out, because like you said, we've been talking about it for a long time. So it'll probably be next week with all the summit stuff going on, but let's just jump on a call with him and knock this out. And I'll take that as an action item.
Okay, election officials. We need election officials. I think we've had one person step up and say they would be an election official. I think, I'm not sure if I read it right, but I think we need multiple.
Yeah, we need 2 people who meet the criteria of 50 contributions, or 1 person at least. But yeah, that's the requirement.
Okay, so
Well, James also said that if somebody's willing to help with the criteria for graduation, that would be considered also. So if you're willing to, that, I believe that's what was said on one of the meetings. So, because look, I do not have 50.
Are you sure? You actually might. You actually might.
Well, I don't know, but I don't think I do, because I'm not like, I don't write code, but I do all the thought leadership stuff and all of that. And so, I think that, there was another stipulation that if you're willing to help work on the graduation stuff, that also counts. So just
I thought you might already have it, to be honest. But
I don't think so.
yeah, Amber, you do, because it's not just code contributions. There's language in there that says if you do other contributions, the election official can decide. Go ahead, James.
Hey, I'm here because I just want to raise one point. The number of contribution over there is generated by a tool that monitor the GitHub action. And I understand that there are so many contributions from the community like Amber is doing. So I see that Amber has volunteer and also David volunteer. Those are very greatly appreciated, and I will talk to the other James, and then hopefully we can get both of you to be the election officer. I don't see a problem having that. So
yeah, as long as the steering committee is the one who gets final say in the end. But
right, because like I just want to raise that like there are so many contributions that are not being checked by the GitHub tool. That's okay. We understand that. We will make sure that like people who are interested in contributing can have the opportunity. So don't worry. Yeah.
the most important thing, though, is that the election official is a bit of a circular problem, because they are the ones who are given power to override the dashboard thing that we have here. Like it's like it's AK Grinner meets the contribution requirement anyway, so you meet the requirement. It's fine. The on the dashboard as it stands. So there's no problem here at all. But I think we should be really firm on requiring that election officials actually meet the criteria, because otherwise it makes no sense, because they're the ones who enable people who don't meet the criteria to be election officials, not election officials, to be voters. But I think we should be very hard on because 50 is not hard to meet if you actually are involved in the community on GitHub.
So let me ask you this. We have David and Amber currently volunteering. Do I have that as election officials?
What's David's GitHub?
Cordoza, David's got plenty. I vouch for him that he's got his contributions.
I don't care about that. I care more about if he's actually got the number. What's his actual number? What's his name?
David, but I can give you now that I don't have the contribution, so.
Then
so
you
I'll
can't be an
have-
election official. I'm sorry. Like we really do need to be hard on this. Like it's for the protection of the community. Like you can
Okay.
vote, absolutely. You can vote, absolutely. That's what if we follow the constitution, if you will, it does say that you have to have the like there's no exception process for the election official.
All right.
Like I don't want to be mean here, but it really is important that we don't allow random people to be election officials. I'm not saying that he's a random person. I'm just saying.
Matthew, yeah, I understand that, and also in the rule, we also say that we can apply for exception in this case, because first we don't have other volunteer who meet the criteria this time, and the second one, I see David and Amber have many contributions in the community, like for example, like the Kubeflow tribal knowledge, and also Amber organizing so many.
So Amber already meets the criteria. I don't think you understand what I'm saying. Amber actually meets the criteria on the GitHub, on the dashboard.
Right. So Amber will be one of the election officials.
And I'm just trying to confirm the other person does. I think he might. That's what I'm saying. What's his actual GitHub ID?
He doesn't yet. And also you can look at the comment for the video. Yeah.
Okay, let me check.
And this actually gets to what I've been saying for a long time is a lot of other communities have in their GitHub an administrative maintainer, meaning that that person can do stuff on behalf of a group that is not necessarily code. And a lot of people are able to do that, but GitHub is not in their workflow. GitHub, I can honestly tell you, is not in my day-to-day workflow. I have to make a concerted effort to use it. And so we need to really work on going forward to show people who aren't necessarily developers who write code how to get involved and use GitHub to track stuff, because there's a lot of people who have put a lot of effort into Kubeflow that don't necessarily use GitHub, as James was saying, and that and this right now, this first process allows for exceptions, because we may have to make an exception in order to get vetted people into the right areas to help. Now that doesn't mean going forward. It just means this first one can be appointed versus, having all the criteria in GitHub. We have not, as a community, done a good job at setting people up for success if they're not.
And this is why you are a great election official, because for the purposes of voting, people will apply to vote, and you're going to have the right perspective on who actually is a good, actually is a member of the community. That's why you're a great potential election official here. The thing that's really important though is that election officials, there does need to be some hard delimitation of what actually is election. Like that is an incredibly trusted position, and you should have some investment in the community. And as I said, you already meet the criteria. Like you've got 60 on the number, you need 50. That things like comments and reviews count, and you've done enough of those. And I think that both your actions and that number demonstrates your extreme commitment to the community. And you know what I mean? Like that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but I wasn't talking about me in this instance. I'm talking about the others in the community who do have a strong community presence and who have contributed to the success of Kubeflow, but not necessarily in GitHub, because they didn't understand at the time how important it was at tracking things through GitHub, because we never said that up until we got ready to go into
I'm not quite sure that I'm understanding this requirement that is being brought up. We expect this metric not to capture everyone who's eligible to vote.
Yep.
Right?
Josh, yeah, so go ahead, sorry.
Election should review and determine whether the member is eligible to vote. I mean, this is all on the election official. I guess your point is the election official, we don't really define what the election official requirements are.
I think it does say that, it used to say, maybe someone's removed it.
So it says like steering committee will be responsible to establish those folks, which means like Thea, Josh, and James will be like, you know,
Right.
the persons who will establish who will be on the election of officers, right?
This is all it says is the election officials will be community members who are in good standing, who are eligible to vote.
Yes, that's the important part. They're eligible to vote.
I too agree to the point that this should be left to the interim steering committee because it is exactly meant for migration to the newer committee, right? So I leave that to interim steering committee.
I mean, if under a truly very specific definition of the words, you could interpret it such that the steering committee appoints Amber. Amber is eligible because she's eligible to vote regardless. Then she appoints another. She waives someone, enables someone else to vote who currently wouldn't be allowed to vote, and then the steering committee appoints them also as another election official. So I guess that's fine, but I think it's really important that we do establish a precedent that you have to be in your own right able to vote to be an election official at first.
So I think the last word from the steering committee here, no matter like whether this person eligible or not eligible to vote, right? So we can have here like James on the call for his comments as well. But if we look to the documents, like steering committee actually responsible for these officers.
Of course, but their power is limited by it says they have the election officials do have to be eligible to vote.
I don't think we have these rules.
It says.
So it's only who is actually eligible to vote. So we don't have anything about like if actually officers should be eligible to vote.
I think it does say that, right? At least it did. I'm just trying to find it again.
I mean, here's how it looks. Eligibility.
So while you're doing that,
if we don't have an election official, then all exceptions and reasons for them were recorded in a log and will be available to the steering committee and the TOC. To me, this says that if we don't have an election official available, it goes to the steering committee, and the steering committee can then decide whether this person is eligible to vote. And if they're eligible to vote and they're eligible to be on and they're in good standing and this other stuff, they're eligible to be an election official.
yeah, Josh, I was going to say, but this is Jeremy Eater. It's been interesting listening in on this conversation. I think the integrity of the community is super important. As someone who doesn't have meet the contribution threshold, if it does come down to needing some help here, I'm happy to do that. I'd actually be really interested in doing that. But I would, I don't need to go through put you all through any unnatural contortions. But I did want to, mention that, our downstream products rely on the success of Kubeflow and the health of the community, as the thousands of other communities, right? As I work for Red Hat, by the way. So I'll leave it with you all to figure that out. But if there's a hole here and you need some help, I'm happy to jump in.
Thank you, Jeremy. All right, let's keep going. I think this, do we have resolution here or not? Maybe the steering committee needs to weigh in.
Well, I think you have this. I mean, I think under the words there, I think we've already got a solution, right? Which is that the election, as if you and James, because you're the only steering committee members right now, adopt Amber as one of the election officers for the next election, she can then remove the disqualification to vote that some other member has, because they don't meet the criteria, by accepting their request, and then you can also appoint that person. So, but they should have to make a formal request, you know what I mean, to her, just to kind of keep the process formal, because it also makes them able to vote, obviously.
I think you're right, Matthew. Based on the current wording and the fact I didn't think I had enough, but like the fact that I do, I think it resolves itself. But it's a good thing to think about.
Yeah,
all right, we'll push this forward. Good. Look, the integrity of this voting process is very important. I agree with you, Matthew. I agree with you, Jeremy. Appreciate the input. Let's make sure that we do this the right way, documented, keep it all going forward. and in the open, right? So people can see what's going on and comment on it. Jono, anything? Okay. Can we move on, or is it cool? I think we'll pick up the Spark operator after the Kubeflow Summit, but there seemed to be a lot of interest in this. A lot of people commented. We probably need to get those contributors back on the horn and see if they want to figure out where the code should live, who's going to manage the meetings. Is this outside of Kubeflow as an external add-on? Is there some roadmap? How does this work? But seemed like there was interest. Matthew, do you want to go over any of these at the top so we can clear some of this up?
There's only one that I really want to see done, and it's that top one, which is that I really want to get rid of the distribution section because we've agreed to do it so long ago, and it's still confusing users. Like,
so what needs to be done? Does somebody
this needs to be just merged? Like, if someone who has approver on the root level needs to agree that this is what we agreed to do, and then merge this PR. Because all this does is there's a small number of distributions who, for legacy reasons, have a link on the sidebar rather than just in the installing Kubeflow page. We can talk about adding another link that future things to the sidebar in the future, but for now it's best to not preference any specific distribution.
Okay, so
like the proposal here is simply to remove.
Where is this on the?
Go to documentation.
Documentation. Where is the documentation? Here it is.
So on the sidebar right now, there's one called distributions.
Right.
This just removes that section entirely and redirects each of those pages to their respective websites. So hard redirects. So the Google SEO will be delegated to them, if you know what I mean. So, and right now these only have one page under each of them because I managed to clean them all up, and each of those distributions has their own website now. So like that's why we did this. So because we wanted to get their docs off the website. So the only reason this part is still here is just because. And so the original proposal a long time ago was that if you look under getting started,
yeah,
the only place where a distribution gets to be advertised, if you will, is under this page. And it's under this table, right? And so all the distributions are here on this table already. It's just this changes it so that, and again, if we want to highlight this page more, that's fine as well. We can put that on the front page even, the home page. It's just right now it's a bit unfair because some distributions get a sidebar one, some don't. And,
Yeah, so if you go over to this distribution, you don't see like
and also some that are being removed, like Aricto's one, don't even.
So what do? We need back on this one, we need approval from James or James. Is that basically where we're at?
Yeah, if we can all agree that, again, I'm happy to have other proposals as well, but I'm removing the sidebar section. Like, again, if you want, I can leave the section, for example, if the problem is that you want to keep that sidebar section, I can make it just a single page section, which links you to the installing Kubeflow page, which actually is what happens, to be clear. So right now, after the PR is merged, if you go to one of this page that you're on right now, it will redirect you to the installing Kubeflow page, but it doesn't have a button on the sidebar. That's the only difference. But if you go to any specific distribution, it redirects you to their website. Thoughts?
James, I think you guys have to merge this. What's your thoughts on this? This has been outstanding for a while.
I think it makes sense to hide it from the side panel for now. And then, yeah, after you make the change, I can approve the PR.
That's already done.
The redirection is redirecting to the external website, right?
Yes. So what happens is so what happens is there's 3 layers of so if you go to the file changes, you can just look at file changes. It's pretty clear once you see that.
I think the biggest problem with this PR that we don't have the distribution section more, right? That we've been discussing a couple of months ago.
Oh no, don't look at the whole page. That's confusing. Go back. Go look at the actual diff. Yeah. So the green ones are the ones that are adding, right?
Is it possible to keep those index pages without showing them on the side panel?
What do you mean?
So, yeah, for example, right now you want to hide the distributions section over here, right, on the side panel.
Mm-hmm.
And then if people left this page, but it's just one page that navigate them to external website.
Yeah, like they move the table, right? James, you're talking about from installs Kubeflow to distribution page.
So that's definitely another. So there's two ways around that, right? I still think we should redirect all these internal ones to them because Google indexes these pages quite highly. And I'd prefer it if people didn't get onto those pages on the website because it looks like we're endorsing them. But if what you want is this distribution section, here to be replaced with a either a link to the installing Kubeflow table or move the table into here. I think it probably makes more sense to link to this table from there, which is what I did, but I can make it so that the actual button on the sidebar stays if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think this linking to the active distribution actually makes sense. It minimizes the work, right, of keeping things up.
So like, because right now all that's changing is that the actual distribution sidebar section is also going away. Like all the internal distribution docs get redirected to their websites. I think that's fair.
Okay.
And it prevents a 404 link. It prevents a 404,
I see. I think I misunderstood what you're trying to do at the first place, but right now with the explanation, I think it makes sense. I'm going
So the question for you guys is, would you prefer me to not 301 redirect the distributions with it when you're not, so like that root page, that overview page, I can make that overview page when you click it, just send you to the to this section here, this installing Kubeflow page.
Can we just move this table to distributions page and that's it, and just remove it?
The problem with doing it that way is that this page is about installing Kubeflow, and it is possible to install Kubeflow from the manifest.
But we can link here to distributions page, right? We can just have a link from here to distributions page.
We could do it that way around as well, if you want.
I would just go from here to here.
That's the question. Which way around do you want it? Like I don't really want people to have to click two links, right? But
yeah, but you also mentioned that we don't want to endorse any distribution, so might not be a good point to maintain the distribution section, I guess. So if with the PR that you open right now, I think it's okay to approve it. If people come back and say no, we want distribution section, like we can create a reward.
So the danger with the current PR is that the distribution section is 301 redirected, which means Google won't re-index that page. You know what I mean? So like it'd be very hard to ever get an SEO on /distributions again. But that's fine.
I think it's fine. But like you have more kind of like communication with the user of Kubeflow. Maybe you see problem like.
Well, the problem is that we removed a lot of the sidebar ones because people were still trying to install not even supported versions anymore because they were on there. But we at least have only individual pages now. But it's still a problem because it looks like when you type Kubeflow Amazon, or whatever Kubeflow thing, it like links to this page. And it looks like this is the official way of doing it. You know what I mean? Not that it's a distribution maintained by that project.
But like if you click this link and then you have the redirect rule that redirect to AWS domain, isn't that?
But they'll never see that because Google, when you do a 301 redirect, it like replaces that link effectively if Google still likes the target SEO. It like gives the page rank to that target. rather than a temporary redirect. But anyway, that's not the point here. The only question that remains is, I can see an argument that I leave the distributions button on the sidebar here and just redirect it to the installing Kubeflow table here. So when you click there, it pings you to the page you were just on, Josh. You know what I mean? Josh, you're muted.
I think that makes complete sense. It just takes you right to this package distributions, either here or here, whichever, from right here. We have one place to keep the docs up. We've had so much trouble keeping the documentation up, especially for the external people. We have it in one place. I think this is much cleaner.
Yeah, this is what we were always going for, right? That people maintain their own docs and we just link to them if they meet the active definition. And at some point we'll have a more conformant definition, but active for now.
Okay, I think like if you want to make that change, sounds good to me as well.
Yeah, that's a very simple change. I'll make that change in the next few minutes, and I'll just, because it's just leaving the distribution page and making it a link instead. That's all.
Okay.
Also, the removing fairing, can we also, that second one there, can we just remove fairing, please? Because I think we all agree that it doesn't exist anymore from the website. So that PR is just to remove fairing from the website. I don't know if it can still be merged. Check it if its merge status is available. Yeah, it can be merged. Okay.
Yeah,
because we've archived that repo.
Yeah, I will take a look after the meeting.
Cool. Okay, cool. Thanks so much, James. Sorry for this. There's a few places that we're just trying to, and once we've got this done and then we fix the installing, the introduction and architecture, I think people will have a much better understanding of what Kubeflow is when they search for it.
No problem. Yeah, thank you for creating the PR and making contributions.
Thanks.
All right. There's this question about Node-RED. Do we have the PR? Has this been taken care of, or is this still open?
This is definitely still open. I think they're just trying to merge some stuff in. I don't think we've all been a very bit busy with Kubeflow Summit and other things to actually review what they're doing.
All right. Let's ask Jeremy, since you joined and commented, I'm going to ask you about this distro list. What's your comment?
Yeah, I'm not sure why I can't edit the doc, but maybe I'm not in the right Google group. Yeah, so we talked a couple weeks back about the base images that proposal there. I guess I have a counter proposal to. I don't see the value in doing that.
For what, sorry?
So there's a proposal there, 7266. Proposed we base our release images on Ubuntu.
Oh yeah, I agree. That's not necessary in general. I think the distro listed conversation is a much more useful one.
So I'd like to steer this 7266 towards that, Matthew, if possible. Every vendor has to maintain. So like the primary, Amber, this is a question for you or
Yep.
a comment directed at you anyway. It's like I'll just quote you from the initial, like the first sentence. We need this implemented so we can deliver a more mature, stable, secure, trusted, and commercially supported Kubeflow release. Every vendor needs that. And so my counter proposal here would be, there shouldn't be any vendor advantaged over another. And so if we can agree on an agnostic solution, as agnostic as DistroList is, it's not 100% agnostic, but can we go that way? I think in fairness to the list of folks we were just looking at, they're all maintaining their own downstream kind of. The problem about the stability and everyone trusting their base image more than everyone else is a shared problem.
Yep. Agree.
So there's only two things so I think in all cases that we can make distro list the base, we should. And there's two cases where we can't though. So if there needs to be a bash terminal, which is the case of notebook images, and if you're running Python, because Python cannot run outside of a distro. So yeah, those are the only two places we need to make decisions for.
Well, wait, hold on. There's some other things to consider. And I would totally say we could do Fedora if we wanted to, but here's the thing. We have a company willing to, one, give resources, to help scan and help fix any CVEs that are found within the base, within Universe and Main, and outside of those. And so we have, because they can automate it very easily. And so we have a company standing up who, and when you look through what our images are already based on, when you look at the percentages of what's already based on Debian, which is, you know, which goes toward Ubuntu, it's not that hard to change. The other thing to consider is our, like those distros and others, how they ingest or pull in their images. Right now, most use Docker. That's the systems that they're based on. So they're using Docker images in their automatic integrations and updates. So before we do anything on this, go either way, we need to make sure that those who are ingesting from the website or from a distro can do distroless, and that especially in regulated industries. So you look at finance, you look at telco, you look at compliance issues, you look at the, any of those that are across the board, and make sure that distroless isn't going to hurt them in the long run and cause them more work. So I don't disagree with what you're saying, Jeremy, and I don't think that that anything's precluding us from doing any of these. And I'm not saying that Ubuntu is the only choice, but right now we have Canonical stepping up, giving resources and willing to help us across the board, not just on security, just identifying it, but automating the process and helping fix the CVEs. And they've got a team of people standing by to help with that. So
I think it's important to understand what's actually technically happening. So like most of the images are Debian based because most open source images are just Debian based. So like if you get the official Python container image from Docker Hub, it's going to be Debian based. If you get the official Golang container image from Python from Docker Hub, it's going to be Debian based. Just because the community kind of for whatever reason has centered around that as the base, and or Alpine. Alpine is the other one that people often base on. Alpine has its own weirdness though. So,
but the thing is,
it's not really
SLAs and legal agreements. You have to have a corporate entity behind that. You can't do an SLA. Like Josh is always talking about SLAs and that kind of stuff. Legally, there's issues with an SLA on Debian, for example. So we need to dig into what a distroless release is going to do to those who are, especially in those regulated industries. That's all I'm saying. Heck, we could do it on Fedora for all I care.
Having just barely recovered from doing a FedRAMP launch, I know exactly what you're talking about. The unfortunate piece is like, I have not seen where we can take a community thing off the shelf and put it into a controlled environment without change. So the assumption that the upstream should support deployment to those controlled industries out of the box is not a pattern I've seen. I mean, it might be good to just directionally head there to save on resources. Yeah.
We're not
but it's
there
not something
yet, but we can make it easier for those folks and for you. And for others.
Yeah, totally get that. Doesn't actually help on our end. It's the same amount of work either way for us. So this is, and by the way, gosh, I'd hate for me interjecting here to come across as like stifling the community or wet blankets. It's not that at all. I just don't think it's the right technical approach. And with a sidebar of like, let's try and play nice as coopetition here surfaces, right? So I would never have placed Fedora or anything else into this conversation because I can't put Fedora in a GovCloud.
Exactly.
It cannot be done. So for that particular use case, even distroless changes, all it does is make the community agnostic, which I think is the right strategic move for the community. Now back to the scanning. We all do that. Every vendor does that. The first vendor to pony up definitely gets an advantage. And like, if there's some way to continue that like take advantage of that even in the distroless world or elsewhere outside the base image world in terms of fixing CVEs, like we should do that. Just unfortunately I can't make it to Kubeflow Summit. I hate doing intros over the phone, but Red Hat, like we derive lots of value from Kubeflow. And if nothing else, I'm coming up to speed on some of the context. We used to be more involved. We're less involved now. I want to make the argument that we participate more and more. Working on making the community agnostic to distros, that's a good place. Working on security, anything to do with CVEs is a huge thing for Red Hat too. So these are areas where we could potentially contribute. If we can maybe reshape the approach here, we would appreciate it.
Sure, I'm all for that, but as we move into graduation, we need an interim solution. So if that interim is just Ubuntu until we can get to the distroless point, then let's do that, because we never focused, and maybe you didn't realize this, but up until this year, we never had a security team focused on security. So now we're trying to put in a security plan and a process and kind of tighten the screws on that so we can get to graduation. That doesn't mean that distroless isn't part of that plan later down the road, but there's a lot of work that needs to go into the discussion around distroless before we do that. And that potentially alone can add at like 9 months to a year, getting us toward graduation in a security plan. So we really, there's a lot more to it than just in this case, the discussion between like, an Ubuntu versus the, Fedora conversation or whatever. It's not that. I started out in the Fedora community, so Red Hat is near and dear to me as well. So I think it's more than that. And all I'm trying to do is get us to a point where we can say we've got automated scanning, we've got an entity that's helping us with it, and that our security procedures are solid to get us through to graduation, and to assure the community that we're not releasing with CVEs like we have been in the past. And you're right, every organization is going to scan on their own. They've got to, for regulation purposes. But if we can make it easier, and we can make the trust that what we're releasing, that we're scanning and we're doing everything that we can not to have CVEs or vulnerabilities, that's what I'm trying to get to. And I'm not against distroless. I just think that's a step down the road. And we can work toward that. But what's the interim step to get us where we need to be so we can secure the releases? That's
There's
all.
also
What's the timeline for graduation?
It's about a year, but if we want to add more to it.
I'm not. So the most important thing to also note here is that in general, CVE scanning is security theater. It's not real. It doesn't actually have any real world impact. And just because a Docker image happens to have a CVE in it does not mean that that CVE has any relevance to the security of your platform. And
there's regulated industries, Matthew.
I understand that right now some regulations.
CVEs.
I understand that some regulated industries might be party to this theater, but as an open source community, that while we should enable the downstream people who have to make it work to be able to do that so that they can sell into those industries, not make it onerously difficult, as an open source community, we should be focused on what's real and what actually matters. And then if the real world decides to align to that, that's good. But again, the main thing I think is that we should focus on what actually makes the product more secure, and also not intentionally making it harder for downstream users to do their job to make it compliant with whatever they need to do. But like distroless is the clear way to make it actually more secure, because it removes stuff that shouldn't be there in the first place. But the actual risk associated with some random CVE in an image that doesn't even have access is usually negligible. It depends on what it is, but it's usually negligible.
I think we need to do some more homework, and we need to talk to the enterprise level, both users and folks who are building on top of it, Red Hat being one. And Jeremy, you can help us with this, but we need to
I've got a
distroless
question.
will do downstream.
we're over time here. Is Jeremy, is there a chance that you could put a 5-minute talk together for the Kubeflow Summit on this topic and perhaps raise this back up a little bit more? I don't know if it's this or somebody else, but what we need is probably to do this at the summit and have everybody who's interested go to the security working group team and then make the decision in the security team and bring this back to the community.
So
I like that idea, Jeremy. And I'll make sure that you're invited to this first security meeting that we're going to have after Kubeflow Summit.
So what I want to hear from Jeremy and other vendors is what they're actually having to do to make their product to when they're using Kubeflow in their product. What do they have to do right now? Like, is there actually something that we can make that easier?
Or
And
better yet, Amber, could we get Capital One, somebody from Capital One, to give a 5-minute?
and I don't really care who it is, but what I want to, Jeremy, if you can raise a PR, right? Not a PR, like an issue somewhere that like, or just a doc, right? Publish a blog. I don't really care. Somewhere that the community can see it that says like, here's what Kubeflow, some concrete steps that Kubeflow could do, which may or may not be related to images. Who knows? That would make vendoring this platform easier for me as a Red Hat distributor. And if they're not, and if you're, and even better, that saying that we're willing to contribute resources to help achieve those goals, obviously. Same with Canonical, same with anyone else who's vendoring it. But like the changing images for images' sake may or may not, like there is the community itself should be focused on what actually makes the product more secure. But if there's members of the community that you are obviously, you know, Red Hat and Canonical, who would benefit in some way from some other change, which doesn't actually necessarily change the security posture of the project, but are willing to contribute resources, and there's a good use case, that's great. I would love that to happen. Right, that's my perspective on it, but yeah.
I can't put a talk together, Josh. I'm sorry, I cannot make it to the summit this year. I've got a cousin getting married, and I'm in the wedding party. So, yeah, Matt, we're on the same page. I think I don't know how much we can surface in one shot, because these documents that we have to meet are generally hundreds of pages long, and we have teams of people that deal with the compliance of various things. But maybe the top level ones we can. The first one that comes to mind, if we're going to do something like this, the one thing we struggled with in the Kubernetes community was FIPS compliance. But I'll leave it at that for now, because we have to. That was a year-long project in and of itself. Amber, so maybe we can talk separately.
Yeah, we can.
Okay,
I'll reach out.
Cool.
I'll reach out. I think there's a
Yeah.
happy medium we can get to, because I think that you understand kind of where I'm going with this.
Totally.
especially after
What I
you
don't
went through
understand are
FIPS
like
and-
the urgency angles that I do not understand yet. So maybe you can help me figure that out.
Will do. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you all.
Jeremy, thanks for bringing this up, and thanks for your efforts to start to contribute. We really do appreciate everything Red Hat has done for the community over time, and getting you guys back more and active. I think does represent a lot of users, and so that'd be helpful. All right, there were
Thank you.
other questions that came up, but there was this recent one about parallel 4 question on Slack. If people haven't seen this, there was some question about that not working in KFP or something. Maybe the KFP people can look at that one. But we're over time. We'll talk at the summit. Matthew's buying drinks on Thursday night.
Huh. Also, well, I mean, I may not be able to if I'm assuming the summit's going to go a bit over time, and I have to fly back at like 8:30 or something. So.
All right, guys. I think that
Thanks,
does.
y'all.
Any final comments?
Jeremy, feel free to message me. By the way, feel free to message me on the Slack if you want to. For the notebooks working group, we control a lot of the images, so I'm assuming that a lot of your problems will be coming from there. So
Yeah,
like,
you can. Yeah, you can. Yeah. So thank you.
yes, yeah. Feel free to message either on that Slack openly or me and Kimonos directly.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. I think this will get us going.
All right, y'all. Have a great summit. I'll watch the recordings if they're on. Take care.
Thanks,
Okay,
y'all.
thanks.